Make some noise for your host, Kid Copious.
What up, perps? Kid Copious. Back in the bunker. Purple State Party. You know what we're doing here. We're repping America, the center, and common sense. And the 4th of July. I'm already starting my plans for that. So, let's get right into this. As you can see right here, title of today's episode is PSP Plus. Yeah, I'm proud to say I've lasted longer than CNN Plus. Probably made about as much money as CNN Plus. But anyhow, that's where I got my title for today. So we're going to just jump right into our bullet points. Netflix shares crashing, CNN Plus shutting down after 1 month. Actually, it's 3 weeks, but, you know, who's counting? Spotify removes Obama podcast, probably because they weren't doing anything with it. Disney's getting stripped of its special governing powers. Not really sure what that all means. I mean, I don't think I'd want to get rid of Disney World if I was running that state. But, yeah, you know, they want to fight back, whatever. Mass ruled unlawful on public transport. And Elon Musk has secured funding for a Twitter takeover. So we've got some good things, you know, for us here in the center, for us who try to operate with, you know, common sense, mixed with a little love of Jesus, you know, mixed with a little love of, you know, our fellow man, you know. I'm not here to overturn things to make things worse on people. I want to make things better for people. I just want to do it with a common sense approach, you know. And as we're going to see, you know, a lot of these things are, that have been approached without common sense are failing. And we're going to get into that. Another one of my bullet points here. No, you can't just end mass mandates. Well, if you don't like it, then you can buy your own airline. And that's, you know, in response to the kind of censorship that we see on social media. You know, I'm all for censoring hate and violence and, you know, child pornography and some of the things that we can all agree don't need to be on social media. But opposing viewpoints, whether they're right or wrong, you know, they start the conversation. You know, as we're going to see a little, as we go through this today, you know, there's people who are being banned or suspended. And all they're doing is reposting what other people have said. But those other people, they don't get suspended. You know, you have teachers who make these outlandish statements about kids and sexuality and grooming and all of this. And then when somebody reposts it, you suspend them. That doesn't make any sense. You know, meanwhile, I'm pretty sure Putin still has his Twitter account. Congress should not legalize marijuana, Mark Rubio says, because black market weed is laced with fentanyl. Yeah, that's an urban myth. And, you know, I'm here for common sense. I don't give a fuck if this guy's a Republican. I stand in direct opposition to him. You know, legalized marijuana is the safest way for people to get marijuana. That's it. There is no arguing that point. It is safer than buying it on the streets, and it does not contribute to drug cartels in the same way that buying it in a legally operating store does. But here in California, we've seen the downside to it, which is that the government has taxed it to almost 30%, which keeps the black market, you know, 30% cheaper. See, no common sense. You know, I support the legalization, but the amount of tax that they're putting on it, it creates the black market. There's really no arguing that. I mean, when Obama says he's worried about disinformation weakening democracy, he really means that truth weakening the ruling class. Yeah, you know, he was Mr. If you like your health care, you can keep your health care, and that didn't happen. And he talks about misinformation, which is code for speech they disagree with. You know, if we have teachers who are pushing radical agendas or grooming children for abuse, if we have that, it needs to be stamped out. If we have bad cops, they need to be stamped out. Bad politicians stamped out. Doctors stamped out. But if you're going to censor the voices that you disagree with, well, one of the liberal newspapers say democracy dies in the dark. Well, you know what? Lots of things die in the darkness. And people such as myself, libs of TikTok, Babylon Bee, we're just simply trying to shine a spotlight on some of these bad decisions, some of these bad actors, and if they're on the left, then they're going to get a pass and somebody's going to protect them. I mean, that doesn't really make any sense. And I really don't see how people can be offended by that and censor that, point, counterpoint. That's the way you have a discussion. Point, censor the other side is how you have communism, a dictatorship, tyranny. Liberals these days be like, freedom is a threat to democracy. I can't argue that. I really cannot argue that. When I talk about green energy and I try to bring up things like nuclear power and hybrid, I'm still trying to be part of the solution. When I talk about the damage that can be done in transgender reassignment, I'm not trying to stop people from being themselves. I'm not trying to stop people from transitioning. I'm trying to stop confused children from making life-altering decisions backed by a compliant parents, doctors, medical industry, politicians. That's it. Race card, a tool of the intellectually weak and lazy when they cannot counter a logical argument or factual data. And we're seeing a lot of that. We see a lot of that out of BLM. We see a lot of that out of the libs, the far left. They just say it's about race. We're pissed off at BLM because they're shysters, not because they're black. My personal beef with them is that they use the race, the color of somebody's skin, as a marketing tool and as a shield. And they hide behind it. That's no different than some of these corrupt televangelists that are out there who take advantage of people's desperation and love of God to milk them out of their life savings. I'm sure people on the left want to stop the corrupt religious people out there. Well, I was well spoken. And that's no different. That's no different than me being upset that somebody hides behind the B and the BLM and tries to say, hey, you shouldn't be talking about all the money we're stealing because we're black. That doesn't add up to me. That doesn't matter to me. You've been caught with your hand in the cookie jar. Tulsi Gabbard, the Biden family corruption issue is a very, very serious problem. It is. If we have the son of the president selling influence, that is a problem. I would say it was this exact same thing if it was Ivanka Trump. That's troubling. That needs to be investigated. Heads need to roll. I don't understand why something like national security becomes a political issue. It's either corrupt or it's not corrupt. I don't care what side it's from. Earl Weber, yeah, future right there. Look at that guy. Love that guy. Imagine saying you stand for women's rights while letting men dominate women's sports and nominating men for Women of the Year. Yeah, that's one of the things behind Purple State. There is an attack on women. There is an attempt to strip them of everything that makes them special. There is actions from the far left, from the extremists that endanger women. We're going to see more of that as we go along. But I think that was a very poignant point by Earl there. If you stand for women's rights, then you have to stand for common sense when it comes to transgender, trans women. All right? It's one thing to accept a person, such as Caitlyn Jenner, to accept them as a person, to listen to them, to vote for them. It's another completely different subject to say that Caitlyn Jenner is 100% woman and that she can give birth. That's just crazy talk. That's not science. You know? That's not science. That's not common sense. And this is what gets people banned right here. You know, Joe Biden tweets out, the president needs to stop blaming others and do his job. Now, as the president, he says, let's be absolutely clear about why prices are high right now. COVID and Putin. Really? It has nothing to do with your policies. But see, pointing that out can get you banned on Twitter. And that's exactly how democracy dies in the dark. Because every time somebody brings up a fair and valid point, the big tech turns off the lights. Reporter grills Dem mayor over potential re-election bid after the harm you've caused. Yeah, I mean, she gets away with saying that she won't give interviews to white reporters. Worst murder rates in the city. She's got to go. The arrogance of the Democrats sometimes. Netflix waiting for the war to end to make a movie about a black Ukrainian guy falling in love with a transgender Russian soldier. Yep, sounds about right. Apparently the go woke, go broke saying is coming to fruition. Laura Ingraham, I often disagree with her. Sometimes I think she radicalizes things for viewers, but whatever. If the left really cared about autocracy, racism, genocide, Islamophobia, gay rights, Putin, the climate, then they would criticize China more than they would criticize Florida or Texas. Yeah, it's so hip to criticize America and then give a pass to other countries, isn't it? Because that's what they do. Companies like Nike or Disney. I mean, Disney will remove gay characters from posters. They will remove black characters from posters so that the movie sells better overseas. It's hypocrisy. So, as we briefly mentioned, CNN Plus was canceled after 23 days. I guess Americans don't mind free propaganda, but they sure as hell ain't going to pay for it. Hi, my name is CNN Plus, and my pronouns are was and were. Hey, don't write me any letters. This has nothing to do with trans pronouns, okay? That is what you call a joke. Chris Wallace now regretting getting a CNN Plus tramp stamp. You know what? You got what you deserve, buddy. They cheered when Rush Limbaugh died, but want you to be sad when CNN service doesn't work out. I mean, I think I summed that up pretty well. I mean, it's propaganda now. I have in my possession about 15 videotapes, each tape holding 6 hours of coverage. And all of that was recorded after the tragedy of 9/11. CNN used to be my site. CNN used to be my channel. But they became propaganda. They were no longer giving us the facts and allowing us to make our own decisions. They were telling us what our decisions were. They were telling us. They became the thought police. I've had floral arrangements that lasted longer than CNN Plus. So, I'm going to move on to this bitch. Taylor Lorenz. Supposedly, she's a writer for the Washington Post. And they ignore what libs of TikTok were bringing up and doxed the lady behind libs of TikTok. They don't care about sexual conversations with children. They care that it's making their side look bad. Man, that is the kind of shit that will bring down this country. When you ignore horrendous problems because they're on your team. you will cause the other team to step in and step up. And that is not going to have good results. Lives in TikTok. Hi, Taylor Lorenz. Which of my relatives did you enjoy harassing the most at their homes yesterday? Here's Tyler Lorenz talking about how doxing and smearing loved ones and threatening them is not okay in any situation. But she did it anyways. This bitch did it anyway. And Libs of TikTok was not spreading hate. It was not spreading violence. It was not a terrorist organization. It was simply holding a mirror up to liberals and calling them on the bullshit that they themselves said and recorded and made public consumption. And Libs collected it, put it up on the screen and said, look what these fucking lunatics are doing. And then this fucking loony doxes them. Okay, so they will dox Libs for posting videos of freaky teachers openly talking about how they groom children, but not the freaky teachers. They spent more time researching and exposing Libs of TikTok than they did on Hunter Biden's laptop. And Hunter Biden's laptop might contain evidence that the President of the United States was bought and paid for. But no, the focus needs to be on the asshole who's out there exposing us. Really? That's the important part for you. The important part is to silence somebody who is exposing the left. Not that the president might have been bought and paid for. Oh, no. No, because he's on our team. So, I mean, if he sells us to China, well, yay, team. Really? Okay. They're not after me, they're after your kids. I'm just in the way. Harkening back to the Trump days. Ben Shapiro sums this up right here. Tyler Lorenz is a terrible journalist and worst human, targeting a Twitter account that literally just posts leftists owning themselves because that account damages the left is pure Lorenz. Exactly. They don't care who gets hurt as long as their team wins. That's the same thing with both sides. Both sides will do this. That's why we need Purple State. We need somebody in the middle, somebody who's not afraid to take on criticism and look at that criticism and say, what can we do to better ourselves? This is fucking America. All right? We make mistakes, we fix them, and we come back stronger and more united. And right now, all we're doing is making ourselves more separate and weak. Liberals raise concern about an account that's making them look bad by just sharing their own words. And that sums up what is so wrong with social media right now. You're not allowed to talk about things. You're not allowed. You can only talk about the pre-approved subject matter. They don't want you talking about people who regretted transgender surgery. No, they only want to hear from the people who are, yay, it worked for me. And this is what they don't like. They don't like that their own beliefs and ideas are being leaked into the mainstream. Why? Because your ideas are bad? We're just gonna, there you go. Skipping all that. Okay, so what we were just talking about was opposing viewpoints. And this is one of them. A report published Monday argued that transgender kids speaking out against gender-affirming care were going unheard by the Brandon administration. And they are touting the positive effects. Yes, there are positive effects. Some people, and believe it or not, I don't have it in here, unfortunately, but believe it or not, people who suffer from dysphoria, there is something different about the way their receptors receive hormones. It's an actual condition. It mainly affects males. something like 0.6% of the population. But what we're seeing is a lot of people, like right here, they regretted gender-affirming care and argued that all they really needed was a little time to grow up, rather than rushing into the process of permanently changing their bodies. And that's all I'm advocating. Wait until you're 18 and you can make the decision on your own. But for God's sakes, consult multiple doctors. Read about it. Find out what the real risks are. Unlike prescription medication, gender-affirming care doesn't always come with a list of side effects. And the reason they're talking about this is the reports that came out of the Netherlands and Norway, okay, for 22 years allowed gender-affirming care for children, and they've come to the realization that that's not the way to do it. And so they've stopped. You can look that up. You can fact check me. Erica Anderson, who happens to be a psychologist and a trans female, says that too many kids are being pressured into it. They're rushing into it, and there are dangers. Right here, Helena realized she wasn't a boy after years of enduring guidance from non-parental adults, medication, and mental health challenges. She described the realization as crushing and terrifying. No one thinks children who feel trapped in the wrong body should be forced to suffer, but there is a suspicion lurking behind many of these stories that adults really weren't listening to their children, so much as superimposing their own politics on them. For your white girl Instagram, isn't it great? You have a transgender son who's now your daughter. That's a great story. Lots of people will show you love, and they should. But is that really what's going on with your child? And what is the dark side of all of this? The dark side is you've got this woman, pounding women in the face and bragging about beating up TERFs, trans-exclusionary radical feminists. No, they're called women. They're called women who really don't want to get punched in the face by men. A lot of these women, fighters and other athletes, they want to take on the men. They want to try to beat them. But when they can't, they see the folly of the decision to allow a trans female to fight women. That's a dude. It is. I don't have a problem in the social construct of life nowadays of saying that that's a woman. But when it comes to stepping into the ring, it's a man. I don't understand why that is so hard for us to just accept. We're trying our best here, folks. We're trying to include people, but there has to be some common sense. So this was an interesting one. This teacher, who was a Christian, failed to call a male student she, and was essentially reprimanded, sued, and won $400K from a college. Because his beliefs, you see, it cuts both ways. It cuts both ways, you see. If we're going to, as a society, just accept that a man who identifies as a woman is now a she, we also have to accept that people are going to have an alternate view on that, and they're not going to play along. Why should, in this case, why should the trans student have more rights than the teacher? Something to think about, and it's the future of ending this wokeness. The Examiner here. One way to beat wokeness is to sue until it gets very expensive. Okay, and we're talking about the Penn swim team here. The women swim team, we're told that they either change clothes along with a biological male or stop using the women's locker room. This dude was changing in front of women, okay? That's sexual harassment, okay? The law should not have ideals. The law should be a set of rules. It makes it easier. So here he is changing in the locker room, okay? Sexual harassment. Pure and simple. The college played along with it. They were complicit in it. There you go. Just kind of moving along here. So we're going to talk about the border really quick because that's about to erupt. You know, it's been a long-standing opening. This is the White House, okay? This is Jen Psaki and Kamala and Joe Biden. These fucking whack jobs. It's been a long-standing open invitation to any Republican who wants to work with us on immigration reform. You're invited, says Psaki. We've not seen an expression of interest across the board. Really, we tried to build a wall. Most of the components of said wall are still at the border, not being utilized. Okay? Secure the borders, reform immigration laws. Step 1 and step 2. You can't do it the other way. Okay? You can't just let people in. We're letting in more people than live in most of our major cities. Okay? Fact check it. Fact check it. 1.5 million illegal aliens are going to come into this country in the next year or so. That is more than most of our cities. Where are they going to live? Where are they going to work? How are they going to contribute? We don't care about that. We just want to be woke. The Cubans are really getting in on it because they're saying they're LGBTQ. Even the married couples with kids coming from Cuban say they're gay. Because they're using wokeness against us, and that's fine. Look, man, if you really are a gay man in Cuba, get over here. We'll make sure you're safe. We'll help you out. I get that. But you're coming here illegally. Okay? We need to tighten our borders, and then we can do our reforms so that people like that don't have to suffer. But when we know people are lying, we're really going to let them in? Okay. 38% of Americans approve of the way Biden is handling immigration. Gaps in the wall. Look at that. You see wall material laying on the ground while they were constructing the wall. They're streaming across the border. And I'm going to tell you right now, because one thing about polls, all right, they're influenced by human emotion. So out of that 38%, how many people say that they approve simply because it was their team? I'll be honest with you. I think you remove 30% of that number. Because those are people that are just supporting the team. The other 8% are probably illegal aliens. My favorite target's back again. BLM with their PAC, their Political Action Committee here. They paid $150,000 to an art firm run by the father of BLM co-founder Patrice Collier's only child to co-produce an election night live stream that industry experts said should have cost a fraction of the price. That's how you steal money. No, we didn't steal money and give it to my baby father. No, we paid him for a live stream. How long are we going to believe this? How long are we going to allow the government and charities of all creed, ideology, color, whatever the fucking charity is, okay? How long are we going to allow them to do this? They exploit police violence against black people to enrich their lives. I mean, hey, look, there's lots of charities out there, but I'll tell you this right now. If there's a charity out there trying to save elephants in Africa and they exploit all the money, who gets hurt? The elephants? Doesn't really do much. BLM, though, it's wrecked lives. It's wrecked cities. It's promoting an agenda that will not end well. And meanwhile, they're taking the money and enriching their lives. That's why I have a problem with them. They would be surprised, the BLM PAC donors would be surprised to know that their contributions are being paid to BLM insiders and consultants rather than electing their favorite candidates for the midterm elections. This is the watchdog group, National Legal and Policy Center. They're taking money that's supposed to get sympathetic politicians elected, and they're finding creative ways to get it to their friends and family. That should be investigated. Not because they're black, but because they're crooked. In a first, firearms were the leading cause of death for U.S. children and teens because Teens include 18 to 19-year-olds. Huh. So you mean like older kids who might be in gangs shooting each other? Let's blame the gun. Okay, let's blame the gun. Huh. All right. There's more to blame than the gun? The gangs, the violence. Hell, even social media. How many kids? I think there was like 4 or 5 that just recently that killed themselves after killing somebody else while playing with a gun, shooting a stupid-ass video for fucking the Chinese-run TikTok. 2 inmates at an all-women's New Jersey jail are pregnant after both had sex with transgender prisoners. Yeah, okay, and the ACLU won a battle to house 27 trans inmates. See, again, there are numbers, there are percentages of people who are actually trans. And when you have 27 of them in one jail, it makes the numbers a little bit hard to justify. And again, nobody wants to see these people hurt. But how many of these people are faking it so that they can serve out prison sentences while having sex with women? I mean, think about it. It's an exploitable situation, and they're exploiting it. And the ACLU is complicit in it. That's what they do. They take up these stupid-ass causes and make bad decisions. Here's another bad decision. California's new food waste law is backfiring. They want us to do some special shit recycling our food. They can go F themselves. I don't really give a shit about that. They say food releases methane. Okay. I mean, figure out a better way of... I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how you can produce it. But the problem to dispose of food without producing methane. The problem is that because just like most liberal laws, they had an end result. They got the votes on the end result, but they had no fucking plan. There was no plan to distribute the food that was left over from the restaurants. It's costing these food banks money in gas because gas, thanks to people like Biden and Newsom, are exorbitant. You're going to have to spend a lot of money driving back and forth to pick up food from places. But who pays for that? I don't know. Here in California, it shouldn't be a problem. You're taxing the shit out of marijuana. You're taxing the shit out of cigarettes. You're taxing the shit out of gasoline. We're not seeing anything for it. You're ignoring the fact that we're running out of water. You are ignoring the fact that we have almost the population of a large city and homeless people. We're losing thousands of people on the streets to drug overdoses. But yeah, you're going to worry about food because it makes methane. And you pass silly laws with no plan. Tulsi Gabbard is on the offensive right now against Romney and Keith Olbermann. And he made statements asserting that Gabbard and Tucker Carlson are Russian assets. And that this is a time of war, and they should be brought up on treason charges, which carries a death penalty. Here's a few of them. What is there? She's a Democrat, but she's not liberal enough. Oh, okay. Okay. Say, when powerful and influential people make baseless accusations of treason in order to intimidate, silence, and censor those who speak the truth, it has a chilling effect on our democracy. This cannot go unchecked. So they're over there on the left saying that Twitter and free speech is an affront to democracy, but then they just go around and make baseless claims against Tulsi Gabbard and say, oh, no, that's fine, because it's our team doing it. If that's the only reason somebody agrees with something, that proves my point. We need a third party that operates on common sense and does not tolerate that kind of well, it's my team. No, we shouldn't accept that. Just like we shouldn't accept, well, they're the best of 2 bad candidates. That's how we got Biden. You liked Biden more. You hated Trump so much you voted for a fucking incompetent boob. Look, Trump, Putin, more distractions. This one by Bronco really sums it up. That's how they're using all of those excuses. Trump, Putin, Ukraine, racism, climate change. But meanwhile, their own side has already gotten in trouble. They were fined for cooking up the collusion, the Russian collusion story against Trump. I mean, Hunter Biden laptop, Joe Biden corruption. What can we dig up on Don Jr.? Who the fuck cares about Don Jr. now? Who cares? If Don Jr. was selling influence, we didn't see any proof of it. We didn't see any evidence of it. Did we? I mean, I didn't. Nobody has anything on it. So why are we going to focus on the Trumps? Because the Bidens stink. It's just diversion. This is how conservatives deny people their right to vote. Require ID, must be alive, must not vote more than once, and require citizenship. I'm pretty sure that's kind of just the rule book, isn't it? I don't know. I don't know. The libs essentially want it to be okay to cheat because, once again, as long as you're cheating for our team. I got sent this by somebody, a smart ass that I work with. You know who you are. It was about an hour later that Jesus realized that his wallet was missing. Hey, I voted for Trump. You know, the second time, not the first time. Voted independent. But that's funny. What a smart ass. Flight attendant's thankful that he can now identify problem customers more quickly. When people ask why I'm not a leftist, facts and logic, look at that. Jim, back in the top 10. Love it. Love it. Economists starting to think that shutting down the economy for 2 years may have had some negative consequences. Yeah, you think so? Well, yeah. Report, social media platforms to allow questioning election integrity after Republicans win everything in November. It'll be interesting to see how that's all handled because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of dis and misinformation out there. And it's going to be allowed because it's going to be speaking against the other team. Conservatives at TikTok formed to share videos of conservatives sharing sensible opinions everyone else agrees with. I don't know how Babylon Bee does it. I don't. I really wish I could be as good as them. I wish someday they featured me instead of vice versa. But you know what? I'll gladly keep featuring them because they're making good points. Sometimes I disagree, but I still chuckle. Let's print up $1 jillion. Inflation runs at 10%. Fucking Putin. Yeah. This is one of the best memes out there. The whole cyclist meme, I guess you can call it. But that's really a pretty accurate statement. That's what they did. We've talked about this before, that, you know, the last 1.9 trillion or whatever it was is what pushed us over the edge. And Biden's the one who did it. Okay. All right? That's what it is, man. We can't change it now. But we need to look at how that happened, why that happened. And one of the reasons why all of that happened is because instead of having one or two things in a bill, or having a budget that was laid out in a common sense approach, we just spent on special interests all over the place. Lobbyists, special interests, extreme left projects. And it didn't bring any money. It didn't help. It worsened. And that's what happened. I can't argue with that. Judge rules that airplane passengers no longer have to pretend to eat for 5 straight hours. Oh, man, I was on like an hour and a half flight, and I sipped the same cup of water, and every so often my daughter would nudge me and go, take a sip. I'm so glad we're ending all this, man. Not for a political reason, but because, you know, we've got it under control. So it's time to end it. We're showing common sense by ending it. And the common sense came out of Florida. SMH. Here's my favorite one of the week. Promises made, promises kept. I don't work for you. Yep. He works for the far left. Pure and simple. Joe Biden works for the far left. There's no arguing with that. He's senile. He just wants to make people happy. So they send in a pretty girl who says, hey, wouldn't it be great if we gave illegal aliens cell phones and mansions and just opened up the border and let them all in? And he was like, whatever. Like a fucking perv. Whatever. We're getting what you wanted. So I'm going to leave you with this one. John Rich. You know, I met John Rich, not personally, but I met him on Celebrity Apprentice, and he really impressed me. Not even a fan of his music, really. I'm not a fan, but I'm just not really a fan of his music. But this guy speaks with a lot of common sense. And this is one of the best things I've read in a long time. I mean, I give it up to Mr. Rich. You know, Patrick Henry once said, give me liberty or give me death. And lots of our founding fathers had brilliant speeches. And we've had presidents and civil rights leaders who have given eloquent speeches. I have a dream by any means necessary. And this one goes up there. As screwed up as America is right now, I still wouldn't trade her for any other country in the world. Let's sink in for a second. This is America. We fought for our independence, and we've been independent ever since. We are made up of every possible combination of human on the face of this fucking planet. We have seen successes out of every single possible combination of human on this planet. When we make a mistake, we right the ship. When we ended slavery, we went to war with our own people. When terrorists flew a plane into buildings in New York and into the Pentagon, the people on Flight 93 took matters into their own hands. And they swarmed the terrorists. And with no regard for their own lives, they slammed that plane into the ground rather than allow terrorists to take out an important target. That's what it means to be American. We stand up for the little guy. We protect the little guy. We operate with common sense and love of our country. If the woke crowd, if the extremists among us, whether that's extreme left or whether that's extreme right, we will stomp them out because we are Americans. And we don't tolerate failure. And we don't tolerate bad decisions. And we need to return to those days where we are not led by ideals and far-fetched unicorn dreams. And if that's what the leadership of this country wants to bring, whoo-hoo. You saw what happened the last time we had bad leaders. We kicked them out of the country. Because being an American is about trying to do the right thing. We might not always accomplish it, but we get up, we dust ourselves off, and we fight on. So if the woke crowd really wants to continue this, America, Americans are waking up and fighting back. And as Americans, we will win. Oh yeah, we will win. Copious out.